Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film The Judge. Pre-Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. was an actor's actor, a really interesting actor who you'd love to see in movies, who couldn't really get in a lot of movies because of his legal problems, but he was an interesting actor. Then he became Iron Man, and he became a movie star, and he wasn't an actor's actor anymore. He was basically doing Tony Stark in almost every movie, and in fact, if you look at his filmography post-Iron Man, with the exception of things like Tropic Thunder and Due Date, except for Sherlock Holmes, but that was really not a good performance, so I'm just gonna ignore that one. He is doing what most movie stars do, which is do the same role over and over again. It's the role we love him for. It's the reason he's considered to be one of the biggest movie stars on the planet. But if you really look at it, he doesn't really do much beyond the Marvel movies at all. And then you come on The Judge, which is half a star vehicle for Robert Downey Jr. Well, it is a star vehicle for Robert Downey Jr. and half his prestige vanity project picture where he's supposed to show that he's a better actor. He doesn't really do that. The kind of movie that they're making with The Judge, when you're an actor like Robert Downey Jr. and you're in that place in your career, you should be doing a different kind of performance, but he doesn't. He's the same Tony Stark kind of performance that we've seen from him in a while. It's almost like the interesting part of Robert Downey Jr. is gone. And this film is a mess. It's directed by David Dobkin, who's most known for doing things like Wedding Crashers and The Change Up and Shanghai Nights. And for some reason, everyone thought he should do this movie. He doesn't really know what he's doing with the drama. He doesn't really know how to use this cast. And he really tries to make it as prestige-y as humanly possible. It's kind of like someone who doesn't really know much about good movies beyond what's nominated for the Oscars every year tries to make a prestige picture. I think David Dobkin trying to be a drama director and Robert Downey Jr. trying to be more than the movie star he is makes for a pretty terrible combination of two major egos trying to fight for a vanity prestige project that has none of the real prestige but all of the vanity. Robert Downey Jr. plays a slick lawyer called Henry or Hank, which gets confusing because, you know, it's like he has two names, but whatever. He's a slick lawyer. He works for all the bad guys because he's such a good lawyer and innocent people can't afford him because he's so evil. And so then his mom dies and he goes back to this small town, Norman Rockwell town that he grew up in. He sees his dad, who's a judge, who him and his dad don't get along, but they eventually get into that and expose what's going on. But he meets with his two brothers, one of which is autistic for movie logic reasons that make no sense. And then his dad, after his mom's funeral, goes out and drives to the store and turns out he hit and killed a man that he sent to 20 to life to prison and had just gotten out. And so Robert Downey Jr. decides to defend his father, played by Robert Duvall, and try to save him from going to jail for the rest of his remaining life. This film is remarkably badly shot. And at first I thought David Dobkin, I've heard people call him a TV hack, and that's pretty much what he is. He's not even a really good studio director. He's a passable studio director, and he has a pretty good DP, Spielberg's DP in fact. If you've ever wondered if certain directors have a lot of control over the cinematography, watch this movie and think about a Steven Spielberg film and see how badly and misplaced and misjudged the lighting. Sometimes like the light is pouring through in the windows like God's gonna come down and speak about this and be like, now Robert Downey Jr., you better save your father and stuff. It's just so overdone. There's certain things where their autistic brother has an old movie camera and the camera's shaky, and sometimes I couldn't tell if they're doing a part with the old movie camera or if the cinematography was bad. It's really poorly made and it has to hammer home a lot of its points. It can't depend on the actors, even though you have a cast of actors who all have done subtly nuanced performances with Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall and Vera Farmiga and Vincent D'Onofrio. You have a lot of good actors in this, and he really doesn't trust them, and he has to hammer home the points that don't need hammering home, so it almost ruins what the actors are doing by his over direction of it. It's such an odd movie because it feels like everyone is trying to do something different with their careers, but it just feels like everyone's doing something tired and hackneyed, and they didn't really get the kind of movie that they were all trying to make. They got a movie that just feels like a star vehicle for Robert Downey Jr. that's kind of serious. I actually saw a movie, and it's probably the review that came out right before this, of St. Vincent, which was a similar film where it feels like Bill Murray is doing a star vehicle from the 90s. The Judge feels the same way, almost from the early 90s, like Robert Downey Jr. was a star then, and he got to work with a good director. But he didn't. He got to work with a director who is no hand at this at all. This is something that, like, back in the day, I feel like Sidney Lumet would have done, but would have hopefully done a much better job. So I don't really understand what kind of movie they were making. Interestingly enough though, as much as I dislike both this and St. Vincent, and I see similar problems in both, Jack Nicholson was offered both films and turned them both down. So the thing I learned from both these movies is that Jack Nicholson still has good taste in movies because he decided not to do either of these piles of crap. So weird what Robert Downey Jr. is doing at this point. Like, he doesn't want to work with an interesting director, clearly. He doesn't want to be challenged at all. He just wants to play Tony Stark. And you know what? He's really great as Tony Stark. It's one of the best performances in a superhero movie, probably of all time. But he needs to get over that role. He used to be able to get over roles and do different things. Think of him in Zodiac. What happens to the guy who did Two Girls and a Guy? What happened to that guy? And when I watch The Judge, it looks like he's never coming back. He's become a boring movie star. He's not this really amazing actor's actor who became a movie star accidentally and wowed us all. He's not wowing us anymore. He just does not get that this is something we've all seen too many times. Like, there's not much difference between Tony Stark and this. It's like every movie he's in, he's this selfish, self-obsessed prick, and then he eventually, like, discovers himself by the end of the movie. If you've seen Iron Man, you get the arc of what this movie's gonna be. It's incredibly boring how they do it, and it's almost done in the same way as Iron Man, you know, except without explosions. Robert Duvall is in kind of the same camp. If you think of him in something like Tender Mercies, which won him the Best Actor Oscar, and I really liked him in that. And in this, it just feels like he's playing the crotchety old guy that he's played a lot of times before. I didn't get a sense that anyone in this film was really trying to do anything different. They do add some nuance to it, but I felt like the way it was cut, it just like didn't really come through that well. And because everything's so overbearing and blatant, there's even a fight between Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Duvall during a tornado. They do have different acting styles, which kind of works for them, really, to play off of each other, and they seem to know how to do that fairly well. Because they're both people playing off each other in such boring, uninteresting roles, it doesn't go anywhere. And Vera Farmiga is kind of wasted, which is unfortunate, because I think she's a really good actress. Same with Vincent D'Onofrio, who hasn't really been given a fair shake anymore. He used to be such an interesting, great actor, but I feel like no one's really using him very well at this point in Hollywood. The Judge is much like what I said with St. Vincent, a prestige vanity project, star vehicle. Most vanity projects are at least interesting or odd or kind of total mistakes, and this is kind of a total mistake because it kind of shows a lot of ego on the part of Robert Downey Jr. helped produce this with his wife, who's a producer, Susan Downey. I wish they had tried to do something different or interesting with the success he's had and the profile he has, but it just feels like that guy is gone, and so he had to work with the guy who directed The Change Up and make a prestige drama with it that's badly shot and badly made and not very well acted. He's become the uninteresting actor. He's become the movie star that's the antithesis of why we all liked him so much when he became a movie star. And that's a sad thing to watch. And watching The Judge, I really don't have any more faith in him as someone picking projects other than seeing him in a bunch of Marvel movies. He's really playing it incredibly safe doing stuff like this with David Dobkin, who's made a total mess of a movie. And I think David Dobkin hasn't been good in a while. I mean, Wedding Crashers isn't really that great, and this feels like he's even gotten worse. He's someone who really should not switch genres. He was not a strong director. He makes something like The Judge that's inconsistent, that needs to hammer its points home. It shows the lack of confidence he has as a director in making a film like this, in the way he shot it, in the way he emphasizes things with this soft music. The Judge is the kind of movie you think about how you need to really pay your gas and electric bill, Have you paid that? Are you sure? I don't know. It just washes over you because it feels like it's boring and uninspired, much like the bad direction and much like the uninterested, uninspired performances throughout it. The Judge just really isn't a very good movie. And I always hear how people are against superhero movies and they want more movies like this. If this is the kind of movies they mean to be the antithesis of big blockbusters and major studio films, I'd much rather sit through a film with a bunch of explosions and a giant monster than watch this kind of crap. Because this isn't really getting to the heart and soul of characters. It's just getting to the pretentiousness and the boring uninterestedness of a bunch of Hollywood phonies who made a really Hollywood phony, bland movie. So if you have seen The Judge and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.